Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you have been following along at all, you would know that I jumped in on the Beaches and Books readathon for July of 2024, and this video is just a little recap of what I read and how I rated them. I'm going to give a little bit of a metric of each of the books, and then in some following videos I'm going to have one video for each book that I read and a little bit more information about the book and what I thought of it and quotes from the books and things like that. This is just kind of a summary. So the ladies, and I'll put all their information in the description below, but the ladies who started this Beaches and Books readathon, they came up with 12 prompts, and of course, me being me, heard there's 12 prompts and they wanted like a bingo board, and I heard read 12 books. And of course they were like, you can have one book that meets more than one prompt, and that sounds really doable and realistic, but that is not how I interpreted this. So I did attempt to read 12 books. I did read 10 of them. I started all 12, but I did not finish the last two. So we'll start with those. So the two that I did not finish, the first one is a book with royalty or a castle on the cover, and that book was Goose Girl. And again, I'll just kind of put everything off to the side. So that was Goose Girl by Shannon and Hale. It's a retelling of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tale, The Goose Girl. But it's, well, I would say modern day, but it's not really modern day, but it is a retelling of it. And the reading level for that was 5.9, and it is 383 pages. And I think I'm about 150 pages through it. So far, I do really like it. And then ironically, in keeping true to the prompt, the other book I didn't finish is a book you saved for later, which I apparently am going strong on, and that is the Wingfeather Saga, the book 1, On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. So I will be honest, I'm not so sure I'm going to finish this book. It's a little too fantasy for me. I'm all about a fantasy, but this one is a little too much fantasy. We'll see. And it's written by Peterson. And the reading level is for 6th grade, and it's 276 pages. So I will say for reading levels, I'm just gonna give a quick, definition for that. So throughout my series, I will use the accelerated readers reading level, because most of the people who I know who would watch these videos, their kids are in the AR reading program, Renaissance Accelerated Reader. And what those reading levels mean is that the average, whatever the number is, let's just say it's 4.3. So it's the average 4th grader in the 3rd month would be able to read that book with 80% proficiency. So when I say these reading levels, that is what it is saying. It does not mean content-wise it's appropriate for that age group, and it does really speak to difficulty in vocabulary, length of the story, and things like that. But we'll see on some of them, the reading level I would not say is appropriate for the age. So I'll talk about that when we get there. But let's go through the books that I did read. So here we go. The first book was pick a book from the library. Of course, I picked a book from a bookstore. So that was the Bookwanders by Anna James. This was a fantasy book, and the AR reading level for it was 5.8, and it was 281 pages long, and I gave it a 3-star rating. The next prompt was a book that made waves in the community, and so I read The Outsiders, and it is written by S.E. Hinton, and this is a prime example. The AR reading level is 4.7. I would not recommend this book for a 4th grader. This book deals with very heavy topics, very serious topics, very important topics that I do not think an average 4th grader, even in the 7th month of 4th grade, should be reading. So take the reading levels with a grain of salt. And like I said, in the future videos where I talk more about each book, you would be able to know if this is a book that you would feel comfortable with your child reading. But anyways, to go on, it is 180 pages, and I did give it a 5-star review. It was the first time I read it, so depending on your age, you may have read it. I thought it was wonderful, but I had not read it before. So the next prompt was a book that you think will be 5 stars. For this book, I picked How to Get Away with Myrtle. That is part of the Myrtle mystery series, I think. So far I've read 2 of them. They're amazing. I think they're hilarious. Highly recommend. The author is Elizabeth C. Bounce. I think they're all going to be murder mysteries. The first 2 for sure were. This is 5th grade, 8th month for the AR level. It was 343 pages, and I definitely give it a 5 star. The next prompt was a book about friends, and for this book I read Sweep, the story about a girl and her monster by Jonathan Auxier, I think is how you say his name, and it is a historical fiction book. The reading level for it is 4.5, so 4th grade, 5th month. It was 344 pages, and I gave this one a 5-star review. This book I just thought was amazing on every level. I'll talk more about it in the video about that book specifically, but it takes place in Victorian England and follows the story of a young girl who works as a chimney sweep. And so that's where you have a lot of the historical fiction, because you have kind of the setting that really happened, you have this social situation that really happened, but then you have these fantastical elements with her pet monster, and it is just a masterpiece. And so that one I gave a 5 star. So the next prompt was a book with an underwater setting, and I read The Monster Missions by Laura Stewart, who writes a lot of middle grade books, and I highly recommend her books. I think this was her first book that she wrote. I could be wrong, but I think it was one of the first at least. Fantasy, dystopian, most of her books have that feel, that dystopian feel. This was like a 6.4. I have no idea why. I would not have guessed the AR reading level would be that high, but according to this book scanner, it was a 6.4. It was 309 pages, and I gave it a 4 star. I do really like her books. This book wasn't really one of my favorites. You can't go wrong with the Edge of Extinction series. It's a duology rather. Oh my goodness, love that one. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so a book with the sun or yellow on the cover. I read King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table by Roger Lancelyn Green. And this is fairy tale, folklore, adventure, all of that good stuff. And it was for the AR level was 7.7, so 7th grade for 7th month. And they were 385 pages, and I gave it a 5 star. I also had never read this. It was a grand adventure. So you can watch the video to hear my thoughts on that. The next prompt was a book about sports, and I read The Hero Two Doors Down by Sharon Robinson. So this story is about Jackie Robinson and his neighbor. It's actually mostly about the little boy and his relationship with Jackie Robinson, but Jackie Robinson's daughter is the woman who wrote the book. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was historical fiction. It was 4th grade, 3rd month. I will say it was not what I was expecting, in that I was expecting kind of a very happy, sweet book, and it was. I just wanted to throw out there, it was so good, but it was not just a simple little story. It definitely had a lot of depth to it that was heavy. Anyways, well worth the read. Let me just keep going. Watch the video on it with retelling of it. I think I said it was 4th grade, 3rd month, 191 pages, and I definitely give it a 5 star review. The next book is a book with 2 points of view, and for this book, I read the book Ground Zero by Alan Gratz, and it is historical fiction. It's actually based on Ground Zero, September 11th, and it follows 2 storylines, and so that's why I picked it, 2 points of view. One is September 11th, 2001 in America, and then the other storyline is September 11th, 2011. I think it's 10 years later, and it takes place in Afghanistan with a girl and her family. So I gave it, I think I said it's 4th grade, 8th month. It was 304 pages. I did not care for it at all. I don't know how much, I don't know. I'll put it in my review. I gave it a 2 star. I don't know. It just left me with like a kind of feeling of like, what was the point? I don't know. I didn't really like it. I was not a big fan of that one. But anyway, so that was a 2-star for me. Moving along, and my puppy's here. Let's say hi to him. Hey, Trooper. Hey, buddy. Hi. Are you gonna say hi? All right, we'll see how long he joins us, and we'll see how long he stays quiet. So, all right, but a few more left to go. So, a book to read during a rainstorm. For that, I picked The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Also classic. I think it was written like in the 1800s. Had not read it yet. It's fairy tale fantasy. The AR reading level is grade 6, first month. It was 235 pages, and I gave it a 4-star review. And the last book that I got through, so it should be the 10th book, is a book set in a beach town. And I read the Nancy Drew Diaries, which those are the like Nancy Drew for like young kids. I think they've redone Nancy Drew a few times, and this one is like, oh, I have strong opinions about it. This one is for middle grade, and they're the diaries. I highly recommend them for people who are in that age group. I think they were really great. I've read a couple of them. But The Phantom of Nantucket, and then again, I mentioned this before that, oh, I know, what is it? There's probably a storm coming. He barks when storms are on their way. Yes. But the author was Carolyn Keene. That is the pen name for all of the Nancy Drew stories. So they're all written by different authors, but the pen name for all of them is Carolyn Keene. Of course, it's a mystery, and this was 4th grade, 9th month. But honestly, thinking back to my 2nd graders, I would have no problem with them reading these books. So definitely good book if you have a advanced, 2nd or 3rd grader. And it was 176 pages. And I gave it a 3-star just because, kind of like compared to all the other books I read, I was like, eh. But if you have a daughter who is really an advanced reader for 2nd and 3rd grader, I highly recommend. I think they're great. But just to summarize, in total, I read 2,748 pages. So I did not read all 10 books, but technically if we are like being able to merge prompts, the book with royalty in a castle, definitely, I mean, there was a couple of them, but the Princess and the Goblin would fit for that as well. And a book you saved for later, Sweep, is another book that I kept putting off forever. And so maybe we could say I finished the prompts, but in my, warped mind, I didn't get through all 12 of them. And by far, if I had to pick off this list, my favorite book was Sweep. And it was interesting because I kept putting that book off. I kept thinking like, I didn't want to read it. I knew it was going to make me cry. But I mean, just like from a literary standpoint, from the message standpoint, from the storyline, it was amazing. It is a hard book, but it was amazing. And then I think the close second would be The Outsiders. That was another one that I was like hesitant to read, and then here I am. They're my favorite ones. But The Outsiders, it spurred so many great conversations with my husband, and it's definitely a book that will stick with you. For 3rd place in this, oh man, 3rd place, I'm gonna go with King Arthur. I thought that was a really fun book, and I really enjoyed that one too. So that was pretty good. There were definitely some days that I read for like 4 hours, but it was great fun. The whole challenge was so much fun. Hopefully you got a chance to read some books too and enjoy the challenge. And you can keep watching for some other videos, and I will give a little bit more detail about each book, and then you can decide if it's a book that you would want your kids to read or maybe a book you want to pick up yourself. Have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.